Millionaire husband hated his pregnant wife and drove her away. 5 years later, she returned stronger with their child. Conrad Blackwood never wanted children, or at least, that was the rumor whispered among high society circles. Married to the soft-spoken Eloise Bennett, an accomplished artist with a heart of gold, Conrad's glittering billionaire life seemed too important to be burdened by domestic obligations. When Eloise became pregnant, everything fell apart. He accused her of trapping him, hurled cruel words that left her shattered, and finally drove her away with nothing but a suitcase. That was 5 years ago. Now, a mysterious businesswoman has returned to town, one who exudes confidence and moves with a grace that has everyone talking. By her side stands a bright-eyed child who calls her Mama, and the father, Conrad Blackwood. To the outside world, Conrad Blackwood personified success. Born into a modest family in North Carolina, he clawed his way to the top through unwavering ambition and a flair for risk-taking. By his early 30s, he was known as a financial prodigy who could transform even the most precarious startup into a thriving empire. Wealth followed, then power, and finally the adoration of a public fascinated by self-made millionaires. At a charity gala in Manhattan, Conrad encountered Eloise Bennett. She stood apart from the chatter of socialites, wearing a deep blue gown that accentuated her calm beauty. Instead of pandering for investment tips, she asked about his philanthropic passions. He found her refreshing a break from the usual crowd of sycophants. In the swirl of that star-studded night, they shared quiet laughter and discovered an unexpected compatibility. She was an artist who adored music and painting. He was a businessman enthralled by visionaries. Soon, headlines declared them the new power couple merging art and commerce. The wedding was a spectacle, an opulent ceremony at the Blackwood estate, with luminaries like Andrew Friedman of Friedman and Friedman Associates and Helena Wentworth, an influential society figure, filling the pews. The press lauded them as an inspiration, calling Eloise a modern muse for Conrad's unstoppable drive. Their honeymoon was spent yachting off the French Riviera, sipping champagne and whispering about the future. Yet beneath the shimmer of their union lay a fragile foundation. Conrad's empire demanded relentless travel. He hopped between New York, London, and Hong Kong. While he closed deals in high-rise boardrooms, Eloise created vibrant canvases in an empty mansion. She tried to adapt to his whirlwind lifestyle, accompanying him on a few business trips, but he seemed perpetually distracted. Their once deep conversations dwindled to brief phone calls, overshadowed by Conrad's urgent obligations. Loneliness settled into Eloise's heart. She missed the days of their courtship, when Conrad would hold her hand during museum visits and discuss his dreams late into the night. Now he returned from overseas exhausted and preoccupied, if he returned at all. The staff at the Blackwood estate greeted her kindly, but she realized she was just another ornament in a realm dedicated to growing fortunes and forging alliances. Then she discovered she was pregnant. Tentative excitement blossomed within her. Surely this news would bring them closer. She imagined Conrad's face lighting up with fatherly pride. But when she finally told him, in what was supposed to be a tender, private moment, his reaction was anything but joyous. He accused her of wanting to derail his ambitions, of trapping him into domestic obligations he never signed up for. His words stung worse than any physical blow. Eloise's attempts to calm him were met with icy disdain. The man who had once professed boundless love now looked at her with resentment. In one harrowing argument, he demanded she leave if she refused to terminate the pregnancy. Fearful and heartbroken, she packed her belongings and left the estate, tears blurring her final glimpse of the opulent foyer. No one knew how quickly a love story could curdle into a tragedy, yet for Eloise, that was the day her world was ripped away. And for Conrad, it was merely an inconvenient snag in his unstoppable climb to greater power and influence. Eloise found herself standing outside the Blackwood estate with just 2 suitcases, trembling from the confrontation that had unraveled everything she thought she knew. She clutched the edge of her coat, trying to steady her breaths. Rain started to fall, mingling with the tears on her cheeks. In her mind's eye, she still saw Conrad's face contorted with anger, his words echoing, "You never asked if I wanted a child." A nearby taxi driver, sensing her distress, offered to help load her luggage. She slid into the back seat, numb. "Where to?" he asked, but Eloise had no immediate answer. Her family lived across the country in Seattle, and traveling there felt like admitting complete defeat. In a shaky voice, she instructed the driver to head to the nearest upscale hotel. She wanted a quiet room where she could think. That night, Eloise stared at the stark white walls of her suite, her mind whirling with questions. She tried calling Conrad once more, hoping he might calm down, but his phone went straight to voicemail. The next morning, she found her bank account still intact. Conrad had not blocked her access. Perhaps it was an oversight, or perhaps he considered it hush money. Either way, Eloise decided she couldn't remain in Manhattan, surrounded by the reminders of her humiliation. She slipped out of the city, relocating to a small coastal town in Maine she had visited once during a summer art retreat. It felt remote, a perfect place to hide from paparazzi, or the high society gossip that might erupt if anyone realized she was pregnant. She rented a modest cottage near the water. Despite her heartbreak, Eloise resolved not to let despair define her next steps. She was carrying a life inside her, an innocent child who deserved a mother's love. At first, she struggled to adapt. She had no close friends in this quiet Maine town, and her belly swelled as weeks passed. She worried about paying for a baby's expenses, despite having some savings. Yet, as her pregnancy advanced, Eloise discovered a resilience she never knew she possessed. She sold a few of her paintings online, using her maiden name to avoid attention. Gradually, her vibrant art found a small but appreciative audience, enough to keep her afloat financially. Her loneliness was eased by a kind neighbor, Pauline Withers, an elderly widow who offered warm meals and gentle conversation. Pauline noticed Eloise's blossoming pregnancy and, with a maternal warmth, insisted on accompanying her to doctor appointments. Over herbal teas in Pauline's cozy kitchen, Eloise found a listening ear. Slowly, she shared the barest details that her marriage ended when her husband rejected the baby. Pauline never pressed for more. "You're stronger than you think," she said, patting Eloise's hand. "Life can be harsh, but sometimes heartbreak molds us into who we're meant to be." Eloise wasn't sure she believed that yet, but she clung to the hope that this child, her child, would be worth every tear she had shed. Months later, she went into labor on a crisp autumn morning. With Pauline's help, she delivered a baby girl in a nearby hospital. The doctors marveled at Eloise's calm determination, and when they placed the tiny infant in her arms, she felt a surge of fierce love. Amelia Bennett, she named her daughter, giving her Eloise's maiden name, no reference to the father who had cast them aside. In that moment, Eloise vowed to protect Amelia with every fiber of her being. Conrad Blackwood might have turned away, but Eloise would forge a future on her own terms, no matter how solitary or demanding it proved to be. Eloise's first year as a single mother tested her in ways she'd never experienced. Amelia needed constant care, and Eloise juggled the exhaustion of nighttime feedings with the struggle to earn a living. Sleep was scarce, and the demands of motherhood left her little time to dwell on Conrad's betrayal. In the quiet moments, however, the past would gnaw at her. She wondered if Conrad ever thought about the life he had rejected. But Amelia's bright eyes and tiny laughter acted as an anchor. She found unexpected solace watching her daughter giggle at the simplest wonders: a flickering candle, the ocean breeze ruffling her hair. That playful innocence reminded Eloise that her child deserved more than regret and bitterness. So she painted whenever Amelia napped, pouring her raw emotions onto canvas. Scenes of heartbreak mingled with glimpses of hope, swirling into pieces that spoke of loss but also resilience. Pauline continued to lend support, babysitting Amelia while Eloise traveled to art fairs in nearby towns. Word spread about her intense, evocative artwork. Over time, she received commissions from small galleries. Slowly, her reputation grew beyond the sleepy Maine community. Some recognized her style from her earlier exhibitions back in Manhattan, but she remained discreet, signing only her first name or using E. Bennett. Still, finances were tight. Eloise resisted using more of Conrad's money than necessary. It felt tainted. She paid the bills with her painting income and a meager portion of the joint account, determined not to rely on his fortune. When Amelia turned 2, Eloise realized their small cottage was no longer big enough for her expanding studio. She began searching for better opportunities to showcase her art. A turning point came when an influential Boston gallery owner, Martin Rothschild, stumbled upon Eloise's work during a charity auction in Maine. Struck by the raw passion in her paintings, he offered her a spot in his upcoming gallery exhibition, a leap forward for any emerging artist. Nervous yet excited, Eloise accepted. The exhibition was a resounding success. Critics praised her distinctive blend of color and emotion, labeling her pieces stirring reflections of the human spirit. Martin, delighted by the response, introduced her to well-heeled clients who commissioned private works. Soon, Eloise's income soared beyond what she once dreamed possible. She no longer had to weigh every grocery purchase against her painting supplies. Throughout this whirlwind, Amelia thrived. The child, with her curly dark hair, had Eloise's gentle nature and an uncanny spark in her eyes that sometimes reminded Eloise of Conrad. Each time that flicker appeared, Eloise felt a pang, part sorrow, part acceptance, that Amelia had a father out there who had never met her. But she pushed that pain aside, focusing on building a stable life for her daughter. Within a few short years, Eloise emerged as a rising star in the New England art scene. She managed to buy a small home closer to Boston, complete with a sunlit studio, a perfect environment to nurture Amelia and her creative pursuits. Living under her maiden name, Eloise Bennett, gave her the freedom to craft a new identity far from the superficial society dinners where she once held Conrad's arm. But she knew deep down that her past with Conrad remained a dormant secret. A confrontation still loomed, and it seemed only a matter of time before fate or circumstance would draw them back into each other's orbit, especially now that Eloise was no longer the vulnerable figure he had dismissed. In the 5 years since Eloise disappeared, Conrad Blackwood soared to new financial heights. He orchestrated 2 colossal mergers and ventured into real estate developments in Asia. Media outlets hailed him as a visionary. He graced the covers of business magazines and commanded speaking engagements on entrepreneurship. Whenever a journalist asked about his personal life, he dodged with polished ease. Rumors swirled that his wife had left him, but no confirmed details surfaced. His corporate machine functioned too seamlessly to let scandal overshadow his successes. Yet behind the veneer of triumph, Conrad experienced moments of inexplicable emptiness. Late at night, in his penthouse overlooking Manhattan, he sometimes paused at the window, swirling a glass of whiskey, remembering fleeting flashes of Eloise, the softness of her voice, the warmth of her smile. He had never publicly acknowledged her departure. He told close associates they had grown apart and left it at that. Only a few high society insiders gossiped about Eloise's sudden disappearance, but with no official statement. The whispers faded. Conrad often rationalized that Eloise's pregnancy was a betrayal, a sabotage to his grand ambitions. He still harbored resentment, believing she'd intentionally withheld birth control or manipulated him. The idea of fatherhood, with its obligations and unpredictability, clashed with his rigid worldview. Yet, as years passed, seeds of doubt planted themselves in his mind. In quiet moments, a voice asked, "What if you made the wrong choice?" He rarely allowed that thought to linger. Instead, he busied himself with expansions and philanthropic endeavors. He became a patron of prestigious art galas, ironically sponsoring multiple up-and-coming artists in memory of Eloise's passion. Some nights, as he mingled at these events, a pang of longing hit him. He'd think he spotted her in the crowd. But every time, it was a stranger. The ache of regret never fully dissipated. Despite his outward success, Conrad's personal life remained barren. He dabbled in superficial relationships, model girlfriends, the occasional actress, but none lasted more than a few months. He refused to share his penthouse or his heart, guarding himself against any threat to his routine. Even his parents, once proud of his achievements, noticed a guarded edge in him. When they gently asked about grandchildren or a stable family life, he dismissed the topic. One evening, Andrew Friedman, Conrad's longtime mentor and a veteran investor, summoned him to dinner. Over an expensive bottle of red wine, Friedman expressed concern that Conrad was hitting a personal plateau. "Men like us, we thrive on success," Friedman mused, "but we also need meaning beyond the deals." Conrad bristled. He didn't appreciate Friedman's insinuation that something was amiss. He had wealth, influence, why wouldn't he be content? Still, Friedman's words stuck with him. Walking back to his car, Conrad spotted a mother cradling a toddler, the child's laughter echoing against skyscrapers. A pang tightened his chest. In that fleeting moment, he wondered if his child had grown somewhere far away. Living a life without him, he dismissed the notion as sentimentality. Eloise had her way, I had mine, he told himself, determined not to let past shadows derail his unstoppable momentum. But destinies often intersect again, especially when one forcibly tries to seal the past behind locked doors. For Conrad, the day of reckoning was drawing near, far closer than he could suspect. On a sunny afternoon in Boston, Eloise Bennett was finalizing the details for a collaborative art exhibit curated by Martin Rothschild's gallery. The show promised to be her most significant exposure, yet local press teased it as a must-see for art connoisseurs. At the same time, she had just received an invitation from a philanthropic organization called the Hannah Frost Foundation, seeking to purchase several paintings for their upcoming fundraiser. The foundation specialized in supporting women's shelters and programs. Eloise admired their work deeply. Amelia, now a spirited 5-year-old, bounded around Eloise's home studio, fascinated by paintbrushes and canvases. She was a bright child, quick to learn and unstoppable in her curiosity. Eloise, busy packing finished pieces for shipping, paused to watch her daughter swirl. Safe, washable paint on a small easel. The joy in Amelia's eyes mirrored the happiness Eloise once knew with Conrad before everything shattered. That day, Eloise's phone buzzed with an unknown Manhattan number. Confusion flickered across her face as she answered. The caller introduced herself as Christine Holden, Assistant Director of the Hannah Frost Foundation. Christine explained that the foundation's primary sponsor was a high-profile billionaire who had offered to host a lavish charity gala in Manhattan. Part of the event would feature an auction of curated artworks, including Eloise's. Eloise hesitated. Traveling to Manhattan risked crossing paths with her old life. But Christine's excitement was contagious. "Your style resonates with our mission," she said. "We want your presence to highlight the artists behind these works." The gala was just a month away. Could Eloise stand to re-enter Conrad's city with Amelia in tow? Ultimately, Eloise felt compelled by the chance to advocate for women's empowerment, her new guiding principle after surviving her own crisis. She agreed on the condition that the foundation handle her accommodations and that they keep her personal details private. Christine cheerfully promised every courtesy. With a mix of apprehension and determination, Eloise began preparing for a trip that would inevitably bring her face to face with ghosts from her past. Amelia, oblivious to the gravity of this plan, cheered at the idea of visiting Mommy's old city. Eloise decided to frame it as an adventure, a chance to show her daughter the museums, the city lights, and maybe Central Park. She braced herself for the possibility of seeing Conrad or someone from his circle. After all, he was no stranger to galas. He might as well be the king of them in Manhattan. But she reminded herself she was no longer that timid wife. Now she was an established artist, a mother and a survivor. She arranged for Martin Rothschild to help manage her Boston obligations during the trip. Pauline Withers, her ever-supportive neighbor from Maine, planned to join them for a few days in Manhattan, partly for moral support and partly to watch Amelia if Eloise got swamped. One evening, after tucking Amelia into bed, Eloise sat by her studio window, gazing at the city lights from a distance. A swirl of anticipation and dread filled her. She fingered the wedding ring she still kept hidden in a box, recalling Conrad's face the last time she saw him. 5 years was a long time, and she no longer needed his acceptance. Yet she couldn't quell the flutter of anxiety in her heart at the idea of stepping back into his realm, carrying the child he had rejected. With a small, determined breath, Eloise vowed to be strong for Amelia. If fate or destiny led them to cross paths with Conrad Blackwood, then let it be on her terms. She was done running. Manhattan's skyline came into view as Eloise's train glided over the final stretch. Seated beside the window, Amelia's eyes widened at the glittering towers. "It's so big," she exclaimed, pressing her tiny hands against the glass. Eloise managed a gentle smile, ruffling her daughter's hair. "Yes, it is. I used to live here." Amelia's questions tumbled forth. "Did you like it? Did Grandma and Grandpa visit you here?" Eloise answered what she could, omitting the chapters of heartbreak. She wasn't ready to share. Meanwhile, Pauline dozed in the next seat, having insisted on accompanying them for at least the first week. When they arrived at Penn Station, Christine Holden from the Hannah Frost Foundation greeted them, exuding genuine warmth. She had arranged for a comfortable suite at a family-friendly hotel. Over the following days, Eloise would attend gala planning meetings, finalize her artworks display, and possibly give a brief talk on the intersection of art and advocacy. Christine assured Eloise that the sponsor's identity remained private, though she teased that the backer was rumored to be a major figure in the city's business scene. Eloise pretended not to notice the chill creeping up her spine at the thought of Conrad. She reasoned there were countless wealthy benefactors in Manhattan. The schedule was hectic. Mornings were spent with Christine at the Foundation's Midtown office, reviewing floor plans for the gala venue. Afternoons found Eloise guiding Amelia through the city's wonders, Times Square's neon chaos, a ferry ride past the Statue of Liberty, a stroll through the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Each time Amelia giggled in delight, Eloise felt her nerves ease, even as a sense of watchfulness lingered. Pauline took Amelia to Central Park one afternoon, so Eloise could rehearse her short speech with Christine. Standing in a chic boardroom, Eloise tested the microphone, feeling uncharacteristically nervous. This moment was not only about her art, it was about proving to herself that she could be in Manhattan, speaking publicly without cowering under the weight of her past. During a break, Christine took a call in the corridor. Eloise fiddled with her note cards, only half listening to the muffled conversation. Then Christine returned with an apologetic smile. Small scheduling shift, she explained. Our sponsor wants a private preview of the artworks tomorrow evening at the gala venue. He specifically asked if you'd be available. Eloise frowned. Is that common, for a sponsor to do a private preview? Christine nodded. He's known for wanting personal insight from the artists before the main event. Usually, it's harmless, a quick walkthrough, some conversation. It helps him prepare remarks or align with the cause. He's quite thorough. Apprehension churned in Eloise's stomach. Something about a secretive, powerful sponsor requesting a private meeting felt ominously familiar. But she also realized she couldn't refuse. This sponsor could help raise substantial funds for the foundation. And to back out now risked damaging her hard-earned professional standing. She forced a smile. Sure, just let me know the time and place. I'll be there. That night, after tucking Amelia in at the hotel, Eloise paced the suite's living room. Pauline watched her quietly. At last, Eloise confided her fear. What if it's him? Pauline's brows furrowed. Then you show him the woman you've become, she replied softly. You have nothing to prove, except that you survived and you've thrived. Eloise nodded, holding back tears. 5 years ago, Conrad had driven her away, pregnant and alone. Now she stood on the brink of unveiling the life she'd built in his absence. Tomorrow might bring old pains to the surface, but it also promised the possibility of closure or confrontation. She squared her shoulders, determined to face whatever lay ahead with the courage motherhood had instilled in her. The following evening, Eloise found herself in a grand ballroom attached to a prestigious Manhattan hotel. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city's skyline, while staff hustled to arrange tables draped in white linen. Christine waited anxiously by the main entrance, clipboard in hand. Eloise wore a sophisticated black dress that exuded quiet elegance far from the girlish gowns she once wore at Conrad's side. Her heart thumped as she skimmed over the curated artworks, double-checking their arrangement. Soft lighting cast warm glows on her pieces, each painting a testament to her journey, storms of color giving way to serene horizons. Christine brushed her arm gently. He should arrive any minute. Eloise inhaled, bracing herself. She clenched her fists briefly, then forced them to relax. Whatever happens, I am stronger now. A cluster of bodyguards entered first, scanning the ballroom. Then, from behind them, stepped Conrad Blackwood. He was every bit the imposing figure. She remembered tall, with crisp, expensive tailoring, hair neatly combed back. Yet there was a slight weariness around his eyes she hadn't seen before. His gaze swept the room before settling on Eloise. Instant recognition lit his face, followed by a jolt of shock that froze him in place. Time seemed to slow. Christine, oblivious to their history, beamed. Mr. Blackwood, this is Miss Eloise Bennett, our featured artist. She'll guide you through her works. Christine paused as she noticed Conrad's reaction. He stood there, eyes wide, mouth parted, as though struggling for air. Eloise managed to keep her composure, though her pulse thundered in her ears. She inclined her head politely. Mr. Blackwood. For a tense moment, neither spoke. Christine glanced between them, puzzled. Then Conrad cleared his throat, forcing a tight smile. Miss Bennett, he said, voice hoarse. I've been looking forward to seeing your collection. Christine, still sensing friction, hastily excused herself to oversee final preparations, leaving the two face to face. Eloise led him among the paintings, describing each piece with professional poise. She highlighted her technique, the emotional subtext, yet never revealed the personal story behind them. All the while, Conrad's gaze kept flicking from the artwork to her. Each syllable of her measured explanation seemed to rattle him further. Finally, they arrived at a piece called Rising Dawn, which depicted a lone figure cradling a child against a stark horizon. The swirling colors in the background suggested adversity giving way to hope. Eloise's heart clenched. She tried not to let her voice waver as she said, "This one captures a turning point in my life." Conrad stared at the painting for a long moment. He ran a hand over his jaw, betraying the tremor in his fingers. "You," he began, then faltered. "Eloise, I heard rumors you left the city." "You were pregnant." She swallowed, mustering calm. "Yes, you made it clear you didn't want a child. So I left." The words hung in the air, blunt and unapologetic. His eyes darkened with a mix of regret and anger. Did you keep it?" he fumbled, evidently uncertain whether their child was alive or had been given up for adoption. The raw vulnerability in his tone pricked at Eloise's heart, but she refused to yield to pity. Her answer was a single, steady nod. "She's 5 years old now." Conrad's breath caught, and he stumbled back half a step. In the swirl of that grand ballroom, the man who had once reigned supreme looked as though the floor had dropped from beneath him. All the corporate deals, the unstoppable ambitions, suddenly paled in comparison. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Eloise, holding her ground, waited for the onslaught of questions or excuses. The confrontation that had simmered for 5 long years was now boiling over, and neither of them could walk away unscathed. For a heartbeat, the opulent ballroom seemed to shrink around them, focusing their entire world on a single truth. Conrad Blackwood had fathered a child he never acknowledged. Eloise could see the tangle of emotions on his face: confusion, regret, fear. Memories of that fateful night in the Blackwood estate corridor when he hurled accusations at her flickered through her mind. 5 years of pain threatened to drown her anew, but she anchored herself in the knowledge of her own resilience. Conrad finally found his voice, though it came out uneven. "She, our daughter, how is she? Does she know about me?" His gaze darted across Eloise's features, searching for answers. "Her name is Amelia," Eloise replied calmly, though her throat felt tight. "She's healthy, happy, and bright. She knows she has a father, but I never fed her false hopes. You didn't want us, so I didn't want her pining for someone who would never come." He winced at the quiet rebuke. "1. I made mistakes," he said, voice barely above a whisper. Before he could add more, Christine's footsteps echoed behind them, carrying news that guests for the private preview were due to arrive soon. Conrad glanced at the approaching staff, panic flooding his expression. He leaned toward Eloise, voice urgent. "Please, can we speak in private later?" Eloise hesitated, her anger battling a flicker of compassion. She saw how undone he looked, a far cry from the arrogant businessman who dismissed her pregnancy as an inconvenience. Against her better judgment, she gave a single nod. "After the preview, we'll talk." The staff ushered in select patrons, a swirl of philanthropic elites who had donated generously to the foundation. Conrad, forced to resume his sponsor persona, stood with practiced poise, greeting acquaintances. Eloise fielded questions about her paintings, though her mind churned with the revelation that Conrad was the unseen benefactor behind this event. As the evening wore on, Conrad never strayed far from Eloise's vicinity. Their gazes occasionally locked across the room, each time stirring uneasy electricity in her chest. She spoke with donors about the meaning behind her work, careful not to let personal details slip. Her paintings had always been an expression of her journey, but she realized that tonight, more than any other, she had to protect her boundaries. By the time the last patron left, Eloise's head throbbed from polite conversation. Christine apologized for the long night, scheduling final instructions for the official gala the following week. Conrad lingered, presumably waiting for Eloise. She felt torn between wanting to flee and needing closure. They found a quiet corridor near the ballroom's exit, empty but for a dim light overhead. Conrad asked softly, "Where are you staying?" I'd like to see Amelia. His voice trembled on the last word, as if he had just begun to grasp the gravity of fatherhood. Eloise's protective instincts flared. You don't get to swoop in because of some moral epiphany. You told me to leave when I was pregnant, remember? You made me feel worthless, like a burden. Her eyes glistened with tears she refused to let fall. Amelia deserves stability, not half measures. I need to be sure you won't hurt her the way you hurt me. Conrad's face twisted with remorse. He raked a hand through his hair. I was terrified. I'd convinced myself having a child would ruin everything I'd built. It was selfish, short-sighted, but I can't fix the past. I can only try to be part of her life now. They stared at each other, the corridor's silence echoing with the unspoken years. Finally, Eloise relented slightly. We're at the Gardenia Suites Hotel. She's with a friend, Pauline. If you want to talk about this, meet me at the cafe next door tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We'll discuss if or how you can see Amelia. Thank you, Conrad whispered. He stepped forward, as if he wanted to embrace her, but Eloise stepped back. Then she turned and walked away, her heart a riot of conflicting emotions. Behind her, Conrad remained rooted in the corridor, watching her recede like a figure slipping through the cracks of time. They both knew the easy illusions of the past had shattered. What remained was raw accountability and a 5-year-old child. They each loved in vastly different ways. Morning light filtered through the windows of La Vie en Rose, the small cafe adjacent to the Gardenia Suites. Eloise arrived just before 9, ordering a latte and finding a secluded table near the back. The hush of the place, broken by soft French music, helped steady her nerves. She had left Amelia in Pauline's care at the hotel, explaining she needed a meeting with someone from her past. At 9:05, Conrad slipped through the cafe's entrance, scanning the room until he spotted Eloise. He approached with cautious steps, wearing a neatly pressed suit that seemed out of place in the relaxed setting. She motioned for him to sit. For a moment, neither spoke. Eloise sipped her latte, ignoring the swirl of emotions behind her calm expression. Conrad broke the silence. "Thank you for meeting me," she responded with a slight nod. "I'll get to the point, Conrad. Amelia is my priority. I won't allow anything or anyone that threatens her well-being." He swallowed hard. "I understand." His hands fidgeted with a sugar packet on the table. "I want to be in her life. I know I don't deserve an easy path to that, but I'm asking you to let me try." Eloise examined him, searching for sincerity. "Why now? Because you recognized me at the gala? Because you can't handle the guilt of discovering you actually have a child?" His jaw tightened. "It's not just guilt. I've had regrets for a long time." She raised an eyebrow, and he quickly clarified, "I'm not excusing my past behavior. I was cruel and selfish. I told myself a child would derail my ambitions and that your pregnancy was a betrayal. I see now how warped that was." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a tiny photo. "This might seem strange, but I've kept this for years." Eloise recognized it. A snapshot from their honeymoon, her arms looped around his neck, both smiling at the camera in candid bliss. She felt her throat constrict, remembering how happy she was back then before everything darkened. "I look at it sometimes," he continued, voice rough with unspoken emotion, "wondering if we could have built a real family if I hadn't pushed you away." Eloise stared at the photo, a swirl of old heartbreak threatening to surface. She steadied herself, reminding herself how far she had come. "If you truly want a relationship with Amelia, you'll have to prove yourself. That means consistent effort. You don't get to waltz in and out of her life. She's a child, not a business acquisition." Conrad nodded, eyes downcast. "I'll do whatever it takes. I've already assigned more responsibilities at my firm to my executive team. Friedman and Friedman can run without me, overshadowing everything. I want to be present for her." Eloise tapped her fingers on the table. "We start slowly. supervised visits in public places. You'll meet her as a family friend for now. I need to see how she responds to you and how reliable you are. If that works, we can figure out the rest." Relief flickered across Conrad's face. "Thank you. I appreciate any chance you give me." She felt her eyes sting with unshed tears. "This is for Amelia. Don't mistake it for forgiveness." "That might never come." Conrad nodded, swallowing his pride. "I understand." They settled on a plan. The first meeting would be at a children's play cafe near the hotel in 2 days. Eloise would introduce Conrad as a friend from her past. If Amelia felt comfortable, they might share lunch. No promises beyond that. As they parted ways outside La Vie en Rose, Eloise realized her hands were trembling. Conrad remained on the sidewalk, watching her go with a haunted expression. She remembered a time when such a look would have melted her heart. But now all that mattered was Amelia's happiness. For better or worse, they had begun a tentative new chapter, one that could either heal old wounds or rip them further apart. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of nerves. Eloise was torn between dread and a flicker of cautious optimism. Pauline offered steady reassurance, reminding her that controlling the pace of each meeting could ensure Amelia's emotional safety. Amelia, meanwhile, was delighted when her mother mentioned a special friend would join them at a children's cafe for games and lunch. The child didn't suspect the magnitude of this encounter. Finally, the day arrived. The cozy castle, a themed play cafe, was bustling with families. Bright murals and laughter reverberated through the space. Eloise guided Amelia past a cluster of kids building towers with foam blocks. Pauline followed at a short distance, ready to step in if needed. Conrad waited near a corner table, fidgeting with a toy princess crown an employee had jokingly handed him. He glanced up, spotting Eloise and Amelia across the cafe. She could see the tension in his posture. "Stay calm," she told herself, forcing a polite smile. "Amelia," she said gently, stopping a few steps away, "this is Mr. Conrad. He's an old friend of Mommy's." Conrad's eyes flickered with longing at the introduction, but he composed himself. "Hi, Mr. Conrad," Amelia chirped, studying him curiously. "Do you like princess crowns?" She eyed the plastic tiara in his hand. A ghost of a smile curved his lips. "I'm more of a business suit guy, but for today, sure." She giggled, stepping forward to place the crown on his head. Conrad bent down awkwardly, letting her adjust it. "You look like a king," Amelia declared. Eloise felt her chest tighten at how naturally Amelia accepted him. If only she knew, Eloise thought. They found a table in the children's section, ordering kid-friendly snacks. While Amelia devoured apple slices and peanut butter sandwiches, Conrad asked about her favorite colors, games, and what she liked to draw. She chatted freely about her paintings with Mommy, her stuffed bunny named Buttons, and her new best friend back home. Conrad listened intently, nodding and occasionally exchanging glances with Eloise. At one point, a staff member announced a group story time. Amelia's eyes lit up, and she dashed off to join the circle of children. Conrad watched her with quiet awe. He leaned closer to Eloise. "She's incredible," he murmured. "Thank you for raising her." Eloise's heart clenched. "She's her own little person. I just gave her a safe place." She tried to keep her tone neutral, but emotion lingered beneath the surface. When storytime ended, Amelia returned with a paper crown she had decorated. She plopped down beside Conrad, insisting he compare it to the plastic one on his head. Laughing softly, he swapped them. "Yours is nicer," he said, voice gentle. Eloise observed the scene with a mixture of relief and heartbreak. Conrad was making an effort. He didn't push too hard or try to claim fatherly authority. He simply engaged with Amelia, as though trying to soak up every moment. For her part, Amelia seemed to accept him with the open-hearted innocence only a child can possess. After an hour, Eloise decided it was enough for one day. They prepared to leave, and Amelia asked if Mr. Conrad would see them again. Conrad looked to Eloise, silently asking permission. She nodded, but quietly reminded him, "We take this one step at a time." He crouched beside Amelia, giving her a small wave. "I'd love to see you again, if your mom says it's okay." Amelia beamed. They parted ways with no grand gestures, just a short hug from Amelia, who declared him fun. Outside, Pauline offered a discreet thumbs up, while Eloise breathed a shaky exhale. Conrad stood by the door, the plastic crown still in hand, watching them go. Though only a single meeting, it felt monumental, a father glimpsing the child who, until now, existed only in the margins of his regrets. As Eloise led Amelia away, she wondered if letting Conrad in might heal more than just a father-daughter rift. Perhaps it could finally bring Eloise some measure of peace. The days following that first meeting were an emotional roller coaster. Conrad texted Eloise daily, checking on Amelia, sharing how meaningful it had been to spend even a brief hour with her. His messages radiated a sense of wonder and humility she'd never seen in him before. Eloise maintained cautious boundaries, she replied, politely, but avoided personal details. Still, her anger at him had begun to thaw, replaced by a cautious hope that he might be sincere in wanting to be a father. Meanwhile, the city buzzed about the upcoming Hannah Frost Foundation Gala. Invitations circulated among Manhattan's elite, promising a glamorous evening of philanthropy and art. Eloise, slated to speak about her pieces, found her presence had become a selling point, the reclusive artist with a powerful story, though the specifics remained hidden. She tried to focus on that professional milestone, even as her personal life loomed larger each day. One afternoon, Conrad invited Eloise to lunch without Amelia, suggesting they discuss how to handle future visits. She agreed, on the condition they meet in a public place again. They chose an upscale bistro near Central Park. Eloise arrived to find Conrad already seated, tapping his phone nervously. He rose, pulling out her chair. "Thank you for coming." She settled in, scanning the menu. "Let's talk about Amelia. She's enjoyed her time with you, but we need to build trust." Conrad nodded earnestly. "I want to do things right. I'm prepared to set aside time every week Saturdays, if that works just for her. Maybe we explore the city together. Museums, parks, maybe a kiddie show if she's interested." Eloise watched him carefully, assessing if his newfound enthusiasm would hold under pressure. "She loves museums and music, but please remember, if you promise something, you have to follow through." He looked her straight in the eye. "I will, Eloise, I won't repeat my mistakes." For a moment, their gazes locked, and she saw the regret he'd carried for 5 years. "Why did you hate the idea of a child so much back then?" she asked softly, voice trembling with old wounds. Conrad exhaled. "My father was distant, obsessed with his business, and I hated the insecurity. I told myself I'd never replicate that cycle. But when you got pregnant, I panicked. I feared I'd become my father, a man who thought providing money was enough, while ignoring emotional support." He paused, knuckles whitening around his water glass. "And ironically, I became exactly that. But worse, I pushed you away. It was irrational, selfish, and I can't fix it, but I want to be better now." Eloise felt tears sting her eyes. She recalled the countless nights, pregnant and alone, wishing Conrad would show even a fraction of that vulnerability. "Amelia deserves your best," she murmured. "If you're genuine, I'll let you into her life." But the moment you falter, she cut herself off, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I won't," he promised in a hushed tone. "If you doubt me, watch my actions. I'll show up." They spoke a while longer, hashing out practical steps. Eloise insisted that any introduction of Conrad as Amelia's father must wait until Amelia felt more comfortable. He reluctantly agreed. Before parting, he asked if she might consider letting him fund some of Amelia's expenses. She bristled at first, recalling how once upon a time she'd been cast aside. But she admitted that Amelia's future education, healthcare, mattered more than pride. "I'll think about it," she said, ending the conversation. She rose, leaving Conrad alone at the table, eyes downcast in lingering guilt. Outside, as she walked along the bustling street, she realized the conversation felt oddly cathartic. For the first time in years, she had confronted the man who shattered her world, and she hadn't crumbled. She emerged feeling stronger, albeit still wary. Now, only time would tell if Conrad's transformation had roots or was merely a fleeting contrition. The night of the Hannah Frost Foundation Gala arrived in a swirl of anticipation. A red carpet welcomed Manhattan's elite to the lavish hotel ballroom where Eloise's paintings were displayed. Strings of fairy lights sparkled overhead, while tuxedos and gowns formed a tapestry of glamour. Photographers snapped away, capturing philanthropic celebrities, socialites, and business moguls converging for a charitable cause. Eloise stood near her art exhibit, heart pounding under her elegant emerald dress. She wore her hair pinned in a loose chignon, exuding the confident aura of a woman who had forged her own path. This was her moment to shine as an artist, but also a silent showdown with the past. For the first time in 5 years, she and Conrad would appear in public in the same space, no longer as a superficial couple, but as two individuals sharing a secret bond, their daughter. Pauline had taken Amelia back to the hotel suite, knowing the gala was too adult for a 5-year-old. Still, Eloise wished her child could witness the moment when her mother finally stood on equal footing with the city's elite. Christine Holden spotted Eloise, rushing over. "We have a full house. Your pieces are garnering huge interest, and Mr. Blackwood will be introducing you before your speech." A flicker of tension ran through Eloise, so Conrad would publicly vouch for her artistry. The concept felt surreal, yet she inhaled, reminding herself she'd earned this spotlight. Minutes later, Conrad took the stage, looking poised in a tailored midnight blue tuxedo. The crowd hushed, respectful of his status. He delivered a short speech praising the Hannah Frost Foundation's mission to empower women and children. Then he segued into the art segment. "Tonight, we are privileged to present works from a remarkable artist whose pieces embody resilience and hope," he declared, voice steady but tinted with emotion. "Miss Eloise Bennett, please join us." Applause greeted Eloise as she approached the stage. She glanced at Conrad, saw the pride in his eyes, tinged with an unspoken apology. Turning to the microphone, Eloise steadied her breath, addressing the room in clear, measured tones. She spoke of how her paintings captured journeys from despair to renewal, how each brushstroke told a story of confronting life's harshest lessons, yet refusing to be defined by them. Though she never explicitly mentioned her personal saga, the subtext was palpable. She concluded with gratitude for the Foundation's work supporting women who had faced abuse or abandonment, offering them safe spaces and resources to reclaim their futures. A standing ovation followed. Cameras flashed, capturing her poised form. As Eloise descended from the stage, Conrad quietly extended a hand. She hesitated, then placed her fingertips in his, letting him guide her off the platform. A hush fell over them amid the crowd. "Your speech was beautiful," he murmured. "I'm honored to have supported this cause." She withdrew her hand gently. "Thank you," she replied, subdued. "You did well too." The auction commenced, raising substantial donations. Several of Eloise's paintings sparked competitive bidding, culminating in a record sale that left her both astonished and grateful. Friedman and Friedman Associates milled about, congratulating Conrad on a successful event. Meanwhile, Eloise navigated congratulatory remarks from donors, her cheeks flushed with a mix of excitement and lingering caution. When the night wound down, Eloise found a moment alone on a terrace overlooking the city lights. Conrad soon joined her, a slight tremor in his posture. "I wanted to say goodbye before I leave," he said softly, "and ask if I could see Amelia tomorrow. I was thinking we could visit the Children's Museum before you head back to Boston." Eloise gazed at him, memories of heartbreak dancing in her mind's eye, yet she also remembered how Amelia glowed after their first meeting. "Yes," she said quietly, "let's do that. We'll take it step by step." Conrad's eyes shone with gratitude. "Thank you, Eloise." For a moment, the city's hum embraced them in silent reflection. Two people who had once been husband and wife, torn apart by fear and betrayal, now stood on the precipice of forging a new bond, tentative, fragile but real. In the background, the hum of applause continued, the world seeing them merely as philanthropic allies. Only they knew the deeper tapestry of father, mother, and child that might finally weave them toward a different tomorrow. Life's harshest storms sometimes pave the way for unexpected rebirth. Eloise, once driven away by Conrad's cruel rejection, found her strength in motherhood and art, forging a new identity far from his toxic shadow. Conrad, blinded by ambition and haunted by regret, discovered that no empire, no fortune, could fill the void left by the child he refused to acknowledge. Their reunion in Manhattan, first through a collision at a charity gala, then through cautious visits with Amelia, showcases the power of second chances and the healing that can blossom even after profound betrayal.
Imagine walking into the most lavish baby shower you've ever seen. Crystal chandeliers twinkling above towers of pastel macarons, designer goodie bags lining each seat, and a guest list that reads like a who's who of society's elite. But there's a dark secret beneath all that sparkle. The woman throwing this extravaganza is not the mother-to-be's best friend. She's the millionaire's mistress, and the mother-to-be. She's out of the picture, or so everyone thinks, until suddenly the doors swing open. In strides the real pregnant wife, clutching a marriage license that's about to unravel every lie in this glitzy room. Welcome to the scandal. Damien Blackwell wasn't born into wealth. He fought for it, with the kind of ruthless ambition that made him as feared as he was admired. Standing at 6'2", with carefully styled jet black hair, Damien possessed an intensity that could either captivate or intimidate, depending on which side of his generosity you landed on. By age 35, he had turned a small real estate venture into a sprawling empire. His name was whispered at exclusive charity balls, and he was recognized by moguls in the business world. Tabloid columns loved to label him a self-made millionaire with a heart of stone, yet society columns fawned over him as the unstoppable visionary on the rise. Despite the rumors swirling around him, people craved his presence. They invited him to their galas and philanthropic events, hoping a portion of his Midas touch might rub off. He'd appear in the company of A-list celebrities. Oprah Winfrey once interviewed him on a short segment, calling him the real deal, and he'd been spotted at a fundraiser sitting next to Bill Gates discussing global real estate strategies. His was a name that opened doors, sealed deals, and turned heads. But behind the veneer of polished success lay a tangled personal life. Damien was married, though not everyone in his social circle knew it. And he also had a mistress, a younger woman named Charmaine Delgado, who was cunning enough to stand by his side when it mattered, and discreet enough to remain in the shadows until she chose not to. It all began one deceptively quiet morning in their New York penthouse. Damien sipping his black coffee, looking over spreadsheets of property acquisitions. Charmaine, flipping through a luxury magazine, her eyes lingering on an article about extravagant parties. A dazzling idea began to form in her mind that would soon lead to chaos. The quiet secret of Damien's life was his marriage to Elizabeth Redwood. At 28, Elizabeth exuded a calm, regal grace. She had grown up in a well-respected family in Boston. Her father, Jonathan Redwood, was a high-powered attorney, and her mother, Catherine Redwood, was a socialite renowned for her philanthropic work. Unlike Damien, Elizabeth had come from money, but she carried her privilege with humility. She taught underprivileged children art in a non-profit school. The marriage was low-key. Elizabeth had never been much for public fanfare, and Damien was all too willing to keep his personal life private to protect his empire from scrutiny. Over the years, they had cultivated an image of a silent, behind-the-scenes couple, rarely photographed together, rarely attending events hand in hand. Some thought they were just close business partners. Others assumed they had parted ways. Only a few intimates knew the truth. But Elizabeth was pregnant, something she had confided only in her close friend, Bella Thompson. They were planning to tell the world in their own time, but the pregnancy was a delicate matter. She had suffered 2 miscarriages in the past, and the heartbreak made her cautious. So Elizabeth kept a low profile, preferring to rest in the couple's Connecticut estate, rather than remain in the hustle and bustle of the city. Damien's visits to Connecticut had grown infrequent. The demands of his business took him overseas, so he said. Elizabeth trusted him mostly. She had chosen to focus on her health, certain that once the baby arrived, their marriage would find renewed purpose. What she didn't know was that Damien wasn't merely away on business. He was in Manhattan often with Charmaine Delgado on his arm. And Charmaine was hatching a plan that would rattle the foundations of everything Elizabeth believed about her marriage. Charmaine Delgado was a woman who knew how to make an entrance. With chestnut brown hair styled in sleek waves, impeccable designer outfits, and a fierce determination in her hazel eyes, she had carved out a place for herself in high society, albeit on the margins of respectability. People whispered that she was Damien's mistress, but they also noticed that her circle included the wives of major hedge fund managers, fashion influencers, and even small-time celebrities who adored her lavish dinner parties. She wasn't satisfied with being a well-kept secret. Her ultimate goal was to become the next Mrs. Blackwell. She loved the taste of power she enjoyed at Damien's side. The hush money, the compliments, the exclusive events he brought her to under the pretense of a business associate. She wanted more than stolen weekends in a Paris penthouse or summers at a Tuscan villa. She longed to replace Elizabeth Redwood, whom she considered dull and undeserving of the empire Damien was building. "Have you thought about throwing a party?" Charmaine cooed one morning as she lounged in Damien's penthouse, the city skyline glittering behind her. A big one, with all the right people. It could be a statement event. Maybe a fundraiser for your new philanthropic arm. Damien, engrossed in reading a financial report, merely raised an eyebrow. "You know those events are important, but we have an entire pep team that organizes them. I don't need more noise around me," she persisted. "We need to show the world you're a man of the people, not just a cutthroat deal-maker. And you know I can handle logistics. Our friend Ariana Roswell from the Van Cleef & Arpels brand could sponsor part of it. It'll be huge, darling." He shrugged. "I'll consider it. Right now, I'm more focused on finalizing a land acquisition in Dubai." But that was just the first step of Charmaine's plan. She knew a single social event wouldn't be enough to stir up the scandal that might eventually push Elizabeth aside. She needed something bigger, something personal. and an opportunity was about to present itself in the most unexpected way. Miles away, Elizabeth Redwood was experiencing a new wave of morning sickness in the Connecticut estate. Damien's presence had dwindled to phone calls, text messages. They were cordial, affectionate, even, but detached. He assured her he was overworked and traveling internationally, promising that once deals were settled, he'd be back for a calm, quiet life together, especially when the baby arrived. Late one night, Elizabeth felt an unsettling pang in her chest that had nothing to do with pregnancy. It was a sense that something was off. Her friend Bella had dropped by earlier in the day, showing her social media photos from a party Charmaine Delgado had thrown. Charmaine's Instagram stories were suspiciously replete with hints of a wealthy backer. The location was suspiciously similar to a penthouse Elizabeth recognized as one of Damien's properties in Manhattan. Elizabeth tried to stifle the jealousy, telling herself that this was just a business associate hosting a private function. But the uneasy feeling refused to go away. After all, rumors about an affair had trickled through her social circle for some time, but she had always dismissed them as petty gossip. Now the evidence was piling up, pictures of Charmaine in lavish settings that Elizabeth knew only Damien could access. She placed a hand on her small baby bump. With the child's gentle fluttering in her womb, it felt like both a promise and a reminder. She and Damien were a family. They had a future. She told herself, I have to trust him. Stress is the last thing I need right now. But doubt is a seed that once planted grows rapidly, especially in the lonely quiet of a large estate where your husband's presence is rare. One drizzly afternoon, Charmaine discovered the depth of Damien's secret. A single oversight on his part, he had left a series of open messages on his laptop while he stepped away to answer a phone call. Charmaine saw a digital note from Damien's assistant congratulating him on his wife's pregnancy. Charmaine's heart clenched. She knew Elizabeth existed, but she hadn't realized Elizabeth was pregnant. Jealous fury simmered beneath her carefully poised exterior. She paced the penthouse, chewing on her glossed lip. Eyes narrowed. He's going to have a baby with that woman, she hissed under her breath. What about me? But soon a twisted idea formed in her cunning mind. She decided to use this pregnancy to her advantage. If she could insert herself into the baby's life, she might become indispensable. And so she hatched a plan, so audacious it felt almost delirious, host a baby shower. For Elizabeth, yes, but secretly orchestrated by Charmaine herself and used as a platform to humiliate the pregnant wife or force a confrontation in public. She cornered Damien one evening with a proposition. You never do anything big for Elizabeth, she said sweetly. Why don't we celebrate her pregnancy? It'll be good, Pierre. Everyone in your social circle will know you're a family man. You're committed to your wife. He stiffened. Elizabeth is very private. Besides, she's in Connecticut, and you know she's had complications before. She wouldn't want a big show. Oh, hush, Charmaine insisted. We'll make it a small, intimate affair. A high-end baby shower with carefully vetted guests. I'll handle everything discreetly. It'll be a great show of unity, especially for the tabloids. You could even do it at one of your properties to keep it private. Damien frowned, torn. I don't think Elizabeth would appreciate it if a stranger organizes her baby shower. Charmaine placed a manicured hand on his shoulder. Sweetheart, you need to show your support to your wife. Let me help. I'll ensure it's tasteful. No press, just close friends. I'll do all the heavy lifting. Besides, if you throw a shower for her, it'll erase all those silly rumors about me and you. Her eyes sparkled with the hidden motive, a chance to stake her claim in his life, to show Elizabeth and the world that she was more than just a rumor. Damien was reluctant, but eventually conceded, thinking it might indeed quell whispers of scandal if there appeared to be a friendly relationship between the two women. Charmaine couldn't help but smirk when he agreed. She quickly sent out invitations, making sure to invite only select members of high society and a few of Elizabeth's acquaintances. She didn't invite Elizabeth's family or closest friends. She wanted to keep the event's planning under her strict control. News of the upcoming baby shower spread quietly through upper-crust circles, almost as if it were a secret event for the select few. Elizabeth heard about it from Bella Thompson, who received an invitation by email. Elizabeth's confusion grew. A baby shower hosted by Charmaine Delgado. The name alone made her heart skip a beat. Instead of confronting Damien directly, Elizabeth decided to keep her composure. She confronted him calmly on a phone call. "Why is Charmaine Delgado organizing my baby shower?" Damien cleared his throat, his tone reassuring. "I wanted to do something special for you," Charmaine volunteered. "She's helping me out. I have so many business commitments, and you know she's got connections in event planning circles. She promised it would be small and refined." Elizabeth's gut twisted, but a part of her wanted to believe he was telling the truth, that Charmaine was merely a helpful business associate. She grudgingly agreed to attend, if only to avoid stress and hope for the best. After all, she had always wanted a moment to celebrate her pregnancy with friends. Maybe this was an olive branch. Maybe it would help her and Damien reconnect. But behind the scenes, Charmaine pulled every string to make this baby shower a spectacle. She selected an opulent venue, a palatial rooftop terrace belonging to one of Damien's real estate partners overlooking Central Park. She ordered pastel floral arrangements, towering centerpieces of orchids and roses imported from a prestigious florist in Paris. There would be a harpist, a string quartet, an array of gourmet amuse-bouches, and a cake so lavish it rivaled wedding tears. In the hush of her private thoughts, Charmaine planned her own unveiling. She would arrive looking stunning, the perfect hostess. She'd drop hints about her closeness with Damien to unnerve Elizabeth. And if all went according to plan, Elizabeth would be so overwhelmed she might even retreat, leaving Charmaine to bask in Damien's spotlight. As the date of the shower approached, Elizabeth felt an unshakable anxiety. She was 7 months pregnant, trying to remain calm for the sake of the baby. Bella accompanied her to Manhattan, insisting she shouldn't go alone given her fragile emotional state. They arrived at the luxury hotel where Damien had booked them a suite. When Elizabeth entered the penthouse suite, she found a note from Damien, apologizing that he wouldn't be able to join her immediately. He had an urgent business dinner. She sank into the plush sofa, tears threatening. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, feeling the baby's gentle kicks. Bella poured her a glass of sparkling water. "Damien's being distant again," Bella said softly. "Do you trust him?" "Lizzie." Elizabeth blinked back tears. "I'm trying to. Everything is so confusing right now. He insists he loves me, wants this baby. Yet I see Charmaine in all his public appearances, and now she's hosting my baby shower." Bella offered a reassuring arm around her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you'll see the truth. Sometimes you need to look your fears in the eye. If something is off, I'll be right there to support you." That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She thought of her father's disapproving glance whenever the subject of Damien arose, recalled how her mother once gently hinted that Damien's lifestyle might not mesh well with a stable marriage. Elizabeth had defended him passionately, saying he was just driven, not unfaithful. Now her worst suspicions were creeping in. Could Charmaine Delgado be more than just a helpful business associate? A brilliant late-morning sun bathed the rooftop terrace in golden light the next day. Waitstaff wearing crisp white uniforms circulated silver trays of champagne flutes, fresh squeezed juices, and hors d'oeuvres. Guests trickled in, each more glamorous than the last. The decor was a pastel dreamscape. Delicate pink, mint, and lavender ribbons dangling from tall arches of greenery. A harpist plucked gentle tunes in the corner. Charmaine Delgado made her entrance in a sleek mauve cocktail dress with diamond accents. Heads turned. She was radiant, playing the role of the gracious hostess to perfection, greeting influential socialites and business figures with warm smiles. She seemed to relish every polite question about her connection to the Blackwells. Her eyes roved over the crowd, waiting for Elizabeth. After a tense elevator ride, Elizabeth arrived on the rooftop, escorted by Bella. The moment Elizabeth stepped onto the terrace, a hush fell, followed by murmurs of admiration. She wore a flowing cream maternity gown, her face glowing despite her anxious heart. She placed a protective hand over her baby bump. Charmaine approached with outstretched arms, her smile a calculated blend of warmth and condescension. "Elizabeth, darling, I'm so glad you made it. I've been dying to meet you in person." Elizabeth plastered a polite smile. "Thank you for hosting this. It's quite lovely. I wanted to honor the mother of Damien's child." Charmaine emphasized the name with a slight smirk. "He's told me so much about you. We must chat more later, once you've greeted all these lovely guests." Elizabeth nodded, her brow furrowing. As she glanced around, she noticed many faces. Some were her distant acquaintances, others complete strangers. Few of her real friends were here. It felt like Charmaine's friends, Charmaine's alliances. Elizabeth suddenly felt alien in what should have been her moment. Across the terrace, a small group of women huddled together, whispering and glancing at Elizabeth. She felt the sting of their judgment. Rumors about Charmaine's relationship with Damien had clearly reached these circles, and many were watching to see how Elizabeth would react. Damien himself was noticeably absent. An hour into the festivities, Elizabeth tried to make the best of it. She politely thanked each guest for coming, endured the cooing over baby gifts, and fielded vague compliments about how lucky she was to have such a supportive friend in Charmaine. Bella hovered protectively nearby, noticing the forced smiles and the subtle slights. "Lizzie, do you want to sit down?" Bella asked gently. "You look pale." Elizabeth felt overheated, but she forced a reassuring smile. "I'm fine. Just need a bit of water." Bella guided her to a seat. As a waiter brought over a glass of ice water, Charmaine reappeared, dragging along a tall woman named Harriet McAllister, a flamboyant gossip columnist for one of the city's scandal rags. Harriet was known for her sharp tongue and sensational headlines. She was exactly the kind of presence Elizabeth had wanted to avoid. Charmaine purred Elizabeth. "Darling Harriet here would love a quick chat about your plans once the baby arrives. She's a dear friend and does these wonderful pieces on society families." Elizabeth's stomach churned. She felt cornered. She recognized Harriet's byline stories about extramarital affairs, hidden marriages, and love children that sold out tabloids. With a forced graciousness, Elizabeth offered a handshake. "Pleasure to meet you." Harriet's lipsticked grin was disarming. "My readers would be thrilled to know about your journey. We rarely see you in public. Are you hoping to step into more philanthropic work, After the baby, Elizabeth recalled her ongoing involvement with children's art education. "I've always been philanthropic, Harriet. My work with underprivileged children is where my heart lies." Harriet's gaze flickered to Charmaine, as if searching for a bigger story. "And how has Ms. Delgado here helped you prepare for motherhood?" Elizabeth swallowed her discomfort. "She's kindly hosting this shower. It's very thoughtful of her." Charmaine smirked, hooking an arm around Harriet's. "Damien trusts me implicitly with these sorts of things. We've collaborated on many projects." Elizabeth's heart hammered. She wanted to scream. Instead, she smiled politely, feeling a swirl of nausea. Harriet's eyes gleamed, sensing tension. "Well, I look forward to writing something wonderful," Harriet said, in a tone that implied she wanted to dig up drama. "Thank you both." As Harriet wandered away, Charmaine leaned in close to Elizabeth, lips curling in a mocking smile. "You must be so exhausted. Sure you can handle all this excitement?" "Dear," Elizabeth met her gaze firmly. "I'm fine. I hope Damien arrives soon. This is after all our baby shower." Charmaine's eyebrows arched, a spark of triumph in her eyes. "Oh, he'll be here. Don't worry. He wouldn't miss his own event." From across the terrace, Bella flashed Elizabeth a worried look. Something was brewing, and they both sensed that Charmaine had not yet played her final card. Mid-afternoon, a wave of murmuring swept through the guests. Damien Blackwell entered, flanked by a couple of his business associates. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, exuding confidence, even as tension pinched the corners of his mouth. Elizabeth mustered a smile as she approached him. He leaned down to kiss her cheek, whispering, "You look beautiful." She forced a smile. "Thank you." Without missing a beat, Charmaine swooped in, greeting Damien with an intimate hug that lingered too long. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. Some guests averted their eyes uncomfortably. Others watched eagerly for signs of drama. Damien cleared his throat. "Charmaine, you've outdone yourself. This is spectacular." She beamed. "Only the best for your wife." Her lips curved at the word, as though it were a faint insult. "Now, dear guests," Charmaine said, raising her voice to gather attention. "May I have everyone's attention for a moment? We have a very special surprise planned for Elizabeth and Damien." Two waiters wheeled out a multi-tiered cake adorned with sugar roses and a shining gold bee for baby Blackwell. Gasps of admiration rose among the guests. Charmaine continued, "This baby represents a new chapter in the Blackwell legacy. We all know Damien is a man of ambition and power, but behind every great man is a great woman. Or so they say. Elizabeth, you're carrying his pride and joy, his future heir." Elizabeth swallowed, bracing for the spotlight. She felt a wave of relief that at least in this moment, Charmaine's speech sounded oddly supportive. But then Charmaine's gaze flicked to Harriet McAllister in the crowd. Sometimes, Charmaine said, the greatest test of love is how we handle adversity. And I think we all need to raise a toast to that. Because it's not just about the baby. It's about forging a future that might change the face of the Blackwell Empire forever. A hush fell as glasses were lifted. Elizabeth felt something ominous in Charmaine's words. Damien's expression was inscrutable, yet a slight twitch in his jaw betrayed tension. "Cheers!" Charmaine declared, her eyes flashing with triumphant challenge. Glasses clinked, but no one seemed entirely at ease. It was as though the moment was waiting for something to drop like the hush before a devastating storm. The cake was sliced. The harpist played softly, and guests milled about in the golden glow of early evening. Bella pulled Elizabeth aside gently, pressing a crisp document into her hand. "Lizzie, this came by courier for you at the hotel front desk. It's from your father." Puzzled, Elizabeth unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned over a statement from her father's attorney referencing property transactions tied to Damien and Charmaine Delgado, purchased under a shell corporation. Elizabeth's heart stuttered. So it was true he was financially supporting Charmaine in more ways than a simple fling. There was mention of a property in Paris, high-end jewelry acquisitions, and hush-money payments disguised as consulting fees. Tears pricked Elizabeth's eyes. Her father had, in his own cautious way, tried to protect her. This document spelled out a betrayal more devastating than any rumor. She glanced at Bella, who squeezed her hand in support. Elizabeth took a steadying breath. I need to confront him. Now. Leaving Bella behind, Elizabeth navigated through the throng of guests. She found Damien alone near the bar. His phone buzzed on the counter beside him. He looked anxious, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. She handed him the document, voice quivering. Damien, what is this? He scanned the pages, color draining from his face. Elizabeth, I can explain. Her voice rose, trembling with anger and heartbreak. Explain how you're buying properties for this woman while I'm at home pregnant with your child. How many lies have I believed? Were you ever traveling on business or just off with her? He tried to grab her hand, but she recoiled. It's complicated. I was trying to protect you, the baby. My deals are huge. They require alliances. Charmaine was Elizabeth's eyes glistened. You used me. I was carrying your child, hoping we'd be a real family, and you've been building a future with her. A hush spread as guests nearby picked up on the argument. Charmaine across the terrace watched like a hawk, lips curving into a small smile. Damien struggled for composure, but the tension in the air crackled. Elizabeth turned away, tears streaming. She was about to flee when Charmaine made her final move. Charmaine approached, feigning concern. Elizabeth, darling, is something wrong? Elizabeth glared at her. Don't darling me. You know exactly what you've done. Damien looked on helplessly. Charmaine battered her lashes, turning to the onlooking crowd. My friends, please, let's give Damien and Elizabeth some space. Then, in a lower voice, she added, We're all on the same side, right? This is Damien's baby, after all. Elizabeth's voice cracked. You have no business in my marriage. Charmaine smirked. I hate to be the bearer of difficult news, but you might want to brace yourself. She placed a hand on her own stomach. Because I'm pregnant, too. Gasps rippled through the guests like an electric shock. Elizabeth's face went ghostly pale. The words seemed to echo, bouncing off the marble columns of the terrace. Damien's eyes widened in horror. What Elizabeth breathed, barely able to stand. Bella rushed to her side, supporting her. Charmaine's smirk deepened. Surprised Damien is going to be the father of my child. That's the real reason I planned this shower. A test run, if you will, for the bigger celebration. A mixture of shock and revulsion spread across the guests. Harriet McAllister had her phone out, already taking notes for a sensational article. Elizabeth's trembling hand rested on her own belly. The heartbreak was overwhelming. She thought of the many nights she prayed for this pregnancy to be safe, while her husband created a new life with Charmaine. The betrayal was too immense to put into words. Damien looked trapped like a man whose secrets had finally caught up to him. Charmaine, he hissed. You said you wouldn't. She flipped her hair triumphantly. I changed my mind. You can't sweep me under the rug anymore, Damien, especially not when I'm carrying your child. Everyone here deserves to know the truth." Elizabeth's legs weakened, and Bella guided her to a chair. The crescendo of scandalous whispers rose around them. For a moment, Elizabeth's world spun. Quietly, deliberately, Elizabeth stood again. She locked eyes with Charmaine, then glared at Damien. Her anger surged, adrenaline fueling her. She reached into her small clutch and pulled out a document, her official marriage license to Damien, along with a copy of their wedding certificate, sealed and signed by the state of Massachusetts. She raised her voice with as much composure as she could muster. "You think you can come into my baby shower, my life, and pretend you have some rightful claim to my husband? Let me make something clear to everyone. Here I am, Mrs. Elizabeth Redwood Blackwell, and that is not changing unless I say so." She held the documents up for the onlookers to see. "This is our marriage license, and we are legally married. This scandal you're trying to create will not erase that fact." Charmaine's composure wavered for a second, but she quickly regained her smugness. "Legally married or not, I'm carrying his child. That's a bond you can't break." Elizabeth's tears were gone, replaced by anger and the fierce protectiveness of a mother. "Get out of my face!" Damien tried to step between them. "Both of you calm down. This is not the place for..." Elizabeth turned on him with fury in her eyes. "Not the place, Damien. You let your mistress plan my baby shower. You humiliated me in front of all these people. You might have impregnated her too, and you have the audacity to say this is not the place." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The tension in the air was suffocating. Harriet, phone in hand, was practically salivating at the unfolding drama. The hush gave way to frantic whispers. Some guests discreetly slipped away, wanting no part in the public meltdown. Others stayed transfixed as though watching a train wreck they couldn't turn away from. Elizabeth staggered, pressing a hand to her belly. Bella, alarmed, quickly came forward. "We need to get you out of here, Lizzie." Charmaine sneered. "Oh, the poor dear. Maybe next time she won't be so self-righteous when she's married to a man who can't stay faithful." Elizabeth's voice trembled with outrage. "If I wasn't pregnant, I'd slap you right now." Bella, furious, snapped. "Let's go, Lizzie. This isn't worth risking your health." They made their exit, the stunned crowd parting like the Red Sea to let the pregnant wife pass. Charmaine's lips formed a triumphant smirk, as though she had won something. But in truth, she had just ignited a scandal that would haunt all three of them. Damien hesitated a moment, torn between chasing Elizabeth and dealing with Charmaine. Ultimately, he rushed after his wife, leaving Charmaine in the middle of the shell-shocked guests. Harriet McAllister wasted no time snapping a covert photo of Charmaine's smug face. Later that evening, social media was ablaze with rumors of the fiasco. Several guests posted cryptic updates. "Never seen a baby shower end with such fireworks." Harriet McAllister teased a big expose fueling interest in every corner of Manhattan high society. Back in the penthouse hotel suite, Elizabeth was inconsolable. She had locked herself in the bedroom while Bella tried to calm her down, urging her to rest, to think of the baby. When Damien arrived, Bella blocked his entrance. "Lizzie doesn't want to see you right now." Damien spoke in a low, urgent voice. "I need to explain." "Please, Bella." Bella's eyes flashed with protective fury. "Explain how you lied to her for months, how you not only cheated on her but let your mistress host her baby shower." "Just go, Damien. You've done enough." The door cracked open. Elizabeth's voice, weak from crying, emerged. "Let him in, Bella. I need to hear what he has to say." Reluctantly, Bella stepped aside. Damien entered and found Elizabeth sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes read a box of tissues at her side. "Lizzie," he began softly. "I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen." "Charmaine." "Well, she was more than a fling, but never meant to replace you." She looked up, anger and heartbreak shining in her eyes. "Is she really pregnant?" He hesitated. "She says she is, but I haven't seen any medical proof. She blindsided me too. I swear I never intended for that to happen." Elizabeth let out a bitter laugh. "So it's a possibility. I was home carrying our child while you were off impregnating someone else." He sank to his knees beside her. "There's no excuse. The truth is I got caught up. I was lonely traveling, dealing with pressure. We drifted apart, and Charmaine was available. I'm sorry." Tears streaked her face. "Lonely, I was lonely too. I lost 2 babies before this one. Remember, I needed you, Damien." His voice cracked. "I know, Lizzie. I failed you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you let me." She stared at him, an ocean of hurt welling in her eyes. "Right now, I need space. I need to protect my baby. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." Bella re-entered, guiding Elizabeth into the next room. "She needs rest, Damien. You should go." Damien stood, realizing the gravity of what he might lose. "Lizzie, I love you. I love our child. I promise whatever it takes." His voice trailed off. Elizabeth turned away, tears dripping from her chin. "Just leave." While Elizabeth tried to recover from the emotional blow, Charmaine reveled in the aftermath. She sat in her own luxury apartment, scanning gossip websites. They'd already begun posting sensational headlines. "Millionaire, real estate, mogul faces baby shower scandal, 2 women. 1 baby or 2. She sipped champagne. Smiling at the tabloid photos, one showed Elizabeth, tear-streaked, holding the marriage license aloft. Another captured Charmaine's triumphant smirk. But her phone rang with an unexpected call. Gerald Anderson, one of Damien's close business associates, an older man who had brokered many of Damien's biggest deals. Charmaine answered playfully, "Gerald, darling." "Calling to congratulate me." Gerald's tone was ice. "You've made a spectacle of yourself and Damien. This fiasco is dangerous for the company. The board is worried about negative press. Damien's deals in Asia are already wavering. Investors don't like scandal." Charmaine rolled her eyes. "Tell them to relax. All publicity is good publicity. People will forget in a week." Gerald's voice hardened. "Not this time. Your stunts might cost billions. Damien's name is on the line, and so is yours if you keep pushing this. I'd advise you to disappear quietly or face legal consequences." Charmaine bristled. "Legal consequences for carrying his child? Don't be absurd. I have my own resources. Damien won't let anything happen to me or the baby." Gerald's laugh was humorless. "You're naive if you think he'll jeopardize his empire for you. My recommendation: lay low, handle this discreetly, and pray that Elizabeth doesn't drag you through court. That would be a bloodbath you can't win." The line went dead. Charmaine's smirk wavered. She realized with a chill that no matter how cunning she was, she might be playing a game against forces far larger and more ruthless. Still, she refused to be intimidated. Damien might be the father of her unborn child if she was indeed pregnant, and she intended to leverage that to her greatest advantage. Days turned into a week, and the scandal didn't die down, as Charmaine had predicted. If anything, it spread further. Media outlets that usually stayed away from private affairs devoured the story. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Damien's reputation took a hit, and so did the share price of some of his companies. In Connecticut, Elizabeth tried to find solace. She spent hours in her art studio painting her emotions, swirls of dark blues and fiery oranges depicting her turmoil. Bella stayed with her, ensuring she ate and rested. Late one afternoon, her father, Jonathan Redwood, arrived. He was a tall, stern man who rarely showed emotion. When Elizabeth saw him step into her living room, she burst into tears. She was Daddy's little girl, and her heartbreak was palpable. He held her gently. "I'm here now, Lizzie. We'll fix this." Through sobs, she recounted everything. The baby shower. Charmaine's bombshell, the public humiliation. Jonathan listened quietly, anger flashing in his eyes. "It's time to think about your future, not just your marriage," he said in a measured tone. "Damien's not the only one who can protect you financially. You have your trust fund, and your mother and I will support you. If you want a divorce, we'll ensure you and the baby are taken care of." Elizabeth's lips trembled. "I love him, Dad, but I can't be with someone who betrays me. Not if he won't change. I have to put my baby first." He squeezed her shoulder. "Your mother and I stand behind you. We'll consult with top lawyers. Whether you want a settlement or full custody, we'll figure this out." Elizabeth took a shaking breath. "I just need time to think. I don't want a drawn-out court battle. It's too much stress for the baby. But I won't let Charmaine ruin my life." Her father nodded. "Take all the time you need. We'll keep your options open." In that moment, Elizabeth felt a seed of strength. She might have lost faith in her marriage, but she wasn't helpless. She had her own resources and a powerful family behind her. She vowed not to let her child suffer because of Damien's mistakes. Meanwhile, Damien scrambled to contain the fallout. He held emergency meetings with his PR team and business partners. They devised a strategy to minimize damage, releasing a statement that personal matters are being handled privately and urging the media to respect the family's privacy. But the tabloids thrived on scandal, and every new rumor about Charmaine's alleged pregnancy fueled more headlines. Damien left countless voicemails for Elizabeth. She rarely answered, speaking only when absolutely necessary, mostly about her doctor's appointments. Desperate, he drove to Connecticut unannounced, ignoring his schedule of business calls. He found Elizabeth in the backyard garden, tending to a patch of hydrangeas. She looked serene, though heartbreak lingered in her eyes. Bella, seeing Damien approach, quietly slipped inside. Elizabeth rose, wiping her hands. "Damien." He swallowed hard. "Lizzie, I know you need space, but I had to see you." She shrugged. "I'm guessing your board is demanding that you fix this mess." He sighed. "They are. But that's not why I'm here. This is about us, our baby. I'm sorry I let Charmaine get so close. I was an idiot letting her host that shower. And if she's really pregnant, I'll deal with it." Elizabeth inhaled slowly, the weight of her sorrow evident. "I'm not sure there's an us to fix anymore, Damien. You humiliated me. You lied. You might have fathered another child. How do we come back from that?" He stepped closer, voice cracking. "By remembering what we had, what we still have. We've always been there for each other, especially after our miscarriages. Don't let Charmaine's scheming tear us apart." Elizabeth bit her lip. Memories of their wedding day fluttered in her mind, the quiet vows, the sense of hope. Could she forgive him? Finally she spoke. "I can't just snap my fingers and pretend everything's okay. I need to see you genuinely change. I won't raise this baby in a broken home. But I also won't let you walk in and out as you please. It's all or nothing." He nodded, tears gleaming in his eyes. "I understand. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I'll cut Charmaine out of my life, if that's what you want." Elizabeth's gaze turned steely. "What if she's pregnant with your child? You can't just walk away from that responsibility." Damien looked pained. "I'll provide for that child, but that doesn't mean I have to be with her. I want my family with you." Elizabeth's throat tightened. "Show me you mean it. Because if this is another lie, Damien, I promise you I will walk away for good." A week later, a private meeting was arranged. Elizabeth insisted on seeing Charmaine's proof of pregnancy before making any decisions. Charmaine agreed to a meeting, likely eager to flaunt her hold over Damien. They chose a neutral location, Gerald Anderson's stately townhouse in the Upper East Side, away from prying paparazzi cameras. Elizabeth brought Bella and her father. Damien arrived with 2 of his lawyers. Charmaine came with a small entourage, including a self-proclaimed celebrity attorney known for high-profile cases. Tension was thick. Jonathan Redwood set the tone. "We're here to determine if Ms. Delgado is truly carrying Damien's child. If so, we'll discuss necessary arrangements and responsibilities. If not, we'll consider legal action for defamation and emotional distress." Charmaine, wearing a fitted designer dress that showed only a slight curvature at her stomach, crossed her legs confidently. "How dare you threaten me? I have every right to be here to claim what's mine." One of Damien's lawyers interjected. "We have a doctor on standby to conduct the appropriate blood tests and ultrasound. You agreed to this, Ms. Delgado." Charmaine hesitated. "I want my own doctor. Someone I trust." Jonathan Redwood shook his head. "We'll have an impartial physician, one neither side can manipulate. If you refuse, we'll assume you're lying." Charmaine's eyes flicked to Damien. "You'd do this to me." "Doubt my word," he sighed. "You've given me every reason to doubt you, Charmaine. I need proof." She glowered, but eventually relented with a shrug of feigned indifference. "Fine. Test me. But when it comes back positive, you'll regret questioning me." The group moved to a private office where a discreet physician waited. Under watchful eyes, Charmaine underwent a brief ultrasound and blood draw. The tension was palpable as they waited. Damien stood beside Elizabeth, glancing anxiously between her and Charmaine. Bella and Jonathan Redwood watched from the corner, arms folded in silent judgment. When the doctor completed the ultrasound, the screen showed a small embryo clearly visible, measuring about 9 weeks. Charmaine wasn't lying about being pregnant. The hush in the room deepened. A tear slipped down Elizabeth's cheek. Damien closed his eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. Charmaine sent them both a triumphant smile. "Told you." The group reconvened in the townhouse parlor. The doctor confirmed Ms. Delgado is indeed pregnant, approximately 9 weeks along. Further blood tests will confirm paternity, though Ms. Delgado states Mr. Blackwell is the father. Elizabeth felt her world tilt again. Damien swallowed, looking at Elizabeth with guilt. Charmaine smirked at them both, an air of victory radiating from her. Confronted with the undeniable reality of Charmaine's pregnancy, Elizabeth felt a crushing weight descend upon her. She excused herself from the tense meeting, stepping out into the townhouse garden. The gentle sound of a fountain trickled over the hush of thick hedges. She tried to steady her breathing, fighting tears. Damien found her there, carefully approaching. "Lizzie." His voice trembled with heartbreak and regret. "I'm so sorry." She turned, eyes blazing with pain. "You've saddled me with a lifetime of sharing you with that woman and a child that's not mine. Do you realize how devastating this is?" He reached for her hand, voice thick with remorse. "All I can do is own my mistake. I don't want to lose you. Let me prove to you that I can be the husband and father you deserve." Elizabeth's tears flowed freely. The child in her womb kicked as though sensing her distress. "I don't want my baby to grow up in a broken home, but I refuse to be in a marriage with 3 people. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'll handle everything with Charmaine. We'll set up a trust for her child, ensure financial security. But my home is with you and our baby." She pulled away. "Words aren't enough anymore, Damien. Show me through your actions. If you think I'm going to live under the same roof with you while you juggle some arrangement with Charmaine, you're wrong. I'm staying here in Connecticut until I decide what's best for me and the baby." He nodded, tears glistening. "I understand." With that, they returned inside. Charmaine looked at them smugly. Jonathan Redwood gave her a cold stare. "We'll be in touch regarding legal arrangements. Until then, do not contact my daughter directly. Any communication goes through me or her attorneys." Charmaine flipped her hair. "Damien, you know how to reach me if you need anything, especially with the child's appointments." Elizabeth's heart clenched. Without another word, she left, followed by Bella and her father. Damien lingered behind a silent desperation in his eyes. The lines were drawn. The story exploded in the media once Harriet McAllister got wind of Charmaine's confirmed pregnancy. The tabloids had a field day with headlines like "Millionaire's double-duty wife and mistress both pregnant." Late-night hosts made snide jokes. Online comments ranged from sympathy for Elizabeth to outright mockery of Damien's lack of fidelity. Elizabeth retreated to Connecticut, turning off her phone for days at a time, focusing on her health and painting to channel her emotional turmoil. Bella stayed with her, creating a buffer against the swirling press. Jonathan Redwood consulted with divorce attorneys, property lawyers, and PR strategists to weigh every possible outcome for Elizabeth. Damien did his part to distance himself from Charmaine, if only to placate Elizabeth and salvage his marriage. He cut off personal contact channeling communication through his lawyers. He tried to focus on his business acquisitions, but investors grew skittish. The scandal had tarnished his brand. He faced a crisis in Asia when a major partner threatened to pull out unless he resolved his domestic issues. Charmaine, for her part, attended a few public events, flaunting a small baby bump lapping up the media attention. She granted Harriet McAllister an exclusive interview, painting herself as the wronged woman who had accidentally fallen in love with a powerful man. She teased that she still believed Damien would choose her if Elizabeth walked away. Despite the bravado, she was beginning to fear the Redwood family's legal might. As Elizabeth neared her 8th month of pregnancy, her doctor worried about her elevated stress levels. She decided that for her baby's well-being, she needed clarity even if it was painful. She summoned Damien to Connecticut for a final decision. They sat in the sunroom, where the afternoon light filtered through tall windows. Elizabeth wore a simple linen dress, her large belly a testament to how close she was to giving birth. Damien, looking weary and older than his years, sat across from her. Bella remained nearby, silently supportive. Elizabeth spoke first, her voice calm but resolute. "I've had time to think. My father is willing to help me file for divorce the moment I decide it's over. But I don't want to make a choice I'll regret just because I'm angry." Damien listened intently, clasping his hands. She continued, "I love you. I want our child to have both parents. But I won't be humiliated or lied to. If I stay, I need to know Charmaine is out of our life in every possible way, except for the child you'll need to support. That's unavoidable, but I will not have her at family events in our homes or near me." Damien's eyes brimmed with tears. "I swear, Lizzie, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to raise our child together, and I'll protect you from her. I made a mistake, a catastrophic one, but I refuse to lose you because of it." She inhaled shakily. "Charmaine won't go quietly. You've seen how she craves attention. She's going to hold this child over your head, and she might stir up more drama. If it becomes too toxic, I'm gone." He nodded. "I understand. I'll sign any post-nuptial agreement you want. We can set up a legal framework for Charmaine's baby. Child support visitation. Everything will go through attorneys. No personal involvement." Elizabeth's voice trembled. "I'm giving you one last chance, Damien. Don't betray me again, because I won't survive another heartbreak." He moved to kneel in front of her, gently placing his hand on her belly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me a chance to be a better man for our baby." She placed her hand over his tears, spilling. "Don't waste it." A month later, Elizabeth's contractions began late at night. Bella drove her to the hospital, and Damien rushed from the city the moment he got the call, in the sterile glare of the maternity ward. Elizabeth labored through hours of pain, her screams echoing in the corridor. Finally, a healthy baby girl was delivered, wailing with robust life. Damien broke down in tears when he first held his daughter, whispering thanks and apologies to Elizabeth. Exhausted, she smiled weakly, letting him kiss her forehead. There was a sense of fragile unity in that moment. Over the next few days, Elizabeth stayed in the hospital, regaining strength. Damien remained by her side, doting on the baby. Bella and Jonathan Redwood visited, offering cautious support. A swirl of media inquiry buzzed outside, but the hospital maintained strict privacy protocols. The Redwood name carried weight, ensuring Elizabeth could recover in peace. As Elizabeth held her newborn daughter, warmth filled her chest. Love, hope, and determination to protect this precious child. She watched Damien cradle the tiny girl who had his dark hair and her soft features. For a moment it felt like they were a real family, untainted by scandal. But reality loomed. Charmaine was nearing the midpoint of her pregnancy, and she would soon deliver a child who shared Damien's DNA. That future weighed heavily on Elizabeth's heart, even as she tried to savor the bliss of new motherhood. Elizabeth decided to move back to the Connecticut estate, permanently away from the city's gossip. Damien agreed, hoping to rebuild their relationship in the tranquility of the countryside. He spent more days commuting between the city and the estate, determined to show Elizabeth he was committed. Legally, Charmaine's child was recognized. Through carefully negotiated documents, she received a comfortable allowance, medical expenses, and a guarantee of ongoing child support once the baby was born. She tried to push for more face-to-face involvement, but Elizabeth refused. Damien kept his distance, only communicating through lawyers, and the occasional phone call regarding medical updates. Charmaine's bitterness grew as she watched from the sidelines. She had expected a grand romance or a highly visible co-parenting arrangement that kept her tethered to Damien's life. Instead, she was relegated to the outskirts, a footnote in his empire. Though wealthy by association, she was still alone, pregnant with a man who'd chosen his wife over her. It wasn't the victory she'd imagined. For Elizabeth, life became a delicate balance, caring for her newborn daughter, grappling with the trauma of betrayal, and trying to trust Damien again. Each day that he returned from the city, without any sign of infidelity, was a small victory. She wondered if she could ever fully forgive him, but she loved him enough to try. Months passed, and the scandal gradually faded from public view, replaced by fresher celebrity gossip. Elizabeth and Damien shared quieter days at the Connecticut estate, cherishing the baby girl who had brought them a renewed sense of purpose. Charmaine eventually gave birth to a healthy boy, then drifted into a more private life when headlines ceased to favor her story. Still, the memory of that explosive baby shower lingered like a cautionary tale. In their elegant living room late at night, Elizabeth sometimes caught Damien gazing at her with a mixture of regret and gratitude. Their marriage was far from perfect, and trust was a fragile plant that needed constant nurturing. But they had chosen to move forward together. And that's the story of the millionaire who let his mistress host the baby shower, only for his pregnant wife to show up with their marriage license. Love betrayal and a chance at redemption if they can hold on. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster ride of secret affairs, surprise pregnancies, and unexpected confrontations. If you were as captivated by this tale of love betrayal and redemption as we were, please hit the like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with your friends who crave juicy drama and unforgettable twists. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we'll be bringing you even more riveting stories that shine a light on the hidden scandals lurking beneath the glittering surface of high society. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to keep you on the edge of your seat with our next jaw-dropping tale